Bite-sized PL, professional learning you can consume during lunch or on a dog walk, or while you take time to enjoy the leaves changing colors. Our goal is to provide meaningful, engaging, and brief conversations for educators. I'm Jared. My co-host today is Kate.
Hello, Jared.
Hello, Kate. And our guest today is Anand Bernard, who is a math teacher at Sunset Junior High.
Hi.
Hi. It is awesome to be here with you today.
Oh, I'm excited.
Well, and it was so fun to be in your class. Like, there was just so many great things going on, and I'm glad we get to talk about them.
I want you to just kind of quickly talk with your partners again. Ready, set, talk. Let's give her a clap. Ready, 1, 2, 3.
I would have wanted to be a junior high student in your class. I'm just floored.
Oh, you're too kind.
Yeah, I taught math 1 year. It was the worst idea that anyone's ever had. So I was really excited to be in this class and see all the engagement going on. It was amazing.
Okay, drum roll for Team 5.
And I think when people consider math, like, they don't think about what your class looked like.
You think 0, come over here. If you think 1, go over there. Go, 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 go.
They think about like worksheets, kids working in isolation. And what we saw was the exact opposite. We saw total engagement, and like all the students were just wanted to discuss and share everything that they'd learned. It was just fantastic to see.
I think that it is 10 to the power of 1.6.
Really just confuses me how you could end up with a decimal as the power.
Let's just take a quick vote. How many say you can get decimals as exponents? How many say no way? How many say maybe?
Well, let's talk about one of the things that you've been doing in your class, discussions. We're going to have a discussion about discussions. And our first question for you is, why do you like using classroom discussions?
So there's like 3 main reasons I was thinking about this. I think one of the big ones is it gives you the skills that you want in life, right? Being able to have a conversation as an adult. You want them to be able to listen and not to get mad and angry, and to be able to share ideas. You want to be able to think critically about things. You want to be able to disagree without contention. You want to be able to use evidence to back up what you're saying. So I think just a lot of skills come out of discussions that don't come out of just doing a worksheet. Another big thing is it's a great way to develop understanding and like check understanding. So Einstein said this thing, like, if you don't understand something, if you can't explain something simply enough, you don't understand it very well. And I'm a strong believer of that. As a teacher, I think all of us have been like, I understand this way better now that I'm teaching this, right? And so oftentimes my school experience through math is I could do all the math, but I had no idea what I was doing until I got past Calc 3. And that's way too long, in my opinion, to understand why I'm doing the things I'm doing. And then I think it just opens up the beauty of math. Like, you'll see in that discussion, we just were looking at one like exponent thing, which normally is kind of boring, like, okay. But we had like 4 different strong opinions on like how we could interpret that. And I think math should be more like that. You talk to any mathematician, they're all about math is creative, math is beautiful, it's art. Instead of, like, I have conversations with some of my art friends like, oh, you're a numbers guy, I'm the artsy guy. Like, it's both.
I love all of those reasons. I think elevating student voice is always a priority as teachers. You know, how can we get more students speaking so that they're understanding? I love that your first reason for incorporating more student voice was so that students could learn how to have that conversation. And I just want to highlight one of the structures I saw that will lead into our next question, which was you were giving double tickets to students who used like the sentence starter you wanted them to use, which was...
Okay, again, let's start with I heard, I think, because, Janae.
I heard, I think, because. And it was this perfect way to get them to practice that conversation skill of you should hear what the other person is saying, respond, right? I think this, and then explain back why, which is the most basic of conversation formulas. But it was surprising to see how it elevated the conversation, how students would try to engage and listen with each other. That was pretty impressive.
One of my biggest pet peeves is that students didn't listen to each other. And so I was kind of, last year I went to a training by Mike Flynn, and he was quoting this book. It's called Up for Debate by Chris Lisniak. And it's a debate coach that also is a math teacher. And so he would give this thing in debate language is, I heard, my claim is this, and my warrant, or like my evidence, is this. you're kind of like almost forcing them to listen to each other. And that's what we're valuing, instead of everyone's just so excited to say what they want to say that they have no idea what other people have said.
And you're motivating them to do that. You're tapping into that junior high brain, right? And you're having them look at each other. You're having them track speakers. You're having them use those sentence starters. That's powerful structure.
And I'm going to hop in because you can't really have a discussion if everybody's talking. You have to listen to actually have a discussion, and that's what you've provided there.
So along those same lines, you have elevated student voice. There are so many structures that you've put in place in your class that we just observed, including those sentence starters. So many structures to ensure equity of voice and that students are heard. Can you tell us about some of those structures?
So I think the biggest thing is you have to give them something interesting to talk about. I feel like that's kind of the biggest one. And I actually started this year off by giving things that weren't mathy. So they have all those viral debate things, like it's a hot dog, a sandwich, is a soup, a cereal. So I kind of started that and just kind of get people used to talking about that. I get feedback from students very often. They're like, I'm afraid to talk in front of the class or use the mic. So I try and make it low floor first, and so they kind of get used to it. And more, like at the beginning of the year, there's only about like 4 students that would speak up. Now I got probably like 3 times that much, and it's still first term, so I'm hoping to get more. I try and switch often between small group and whole group. I notice I used to just kind of go whole group as my straight away, and I'd only get a few people talking. By going back and forth, everyone gets a chance to talk about those things, and then they get a chance to have that whole group. And sometimes I've actually been more and more kind of just not necessarily needing the whole group, but trying to do both of those at once. Let's get some hands. What do you think?
I thought that was one of my favorite things about watching your class today was you had the whole group and you'd have students that would share, and then you would turn around and say, okay, now summarize this with your group or with a partner.
That was a lot of people. Will you talk to your partners, summarize what stood out to you in that conversation? Ready, set, go.
It was electric when you did that. Like everybody wanted to share at that point. So, I mean, it's definitely that structure is paying off in the class.
Yeah, and it's a forced way to get everyone to talk about what they heard. So they can't just check out, and at least check out and not look like, really, you didn't hear anything? I've also been trying to shift from cold calling to warm calling. That's what Kellen Davis, my coworker, talks about, trying to listen in on those conversations and invite those who don't normally speak to hey, would you be willing to share with this? I've been doing a lot of reading on math anxiety, and just I'm really trying to stop that this year, trying to just give them a chance to do that. So I still want to get lots of people, but I've been trying to do a more invite way, and it's been a little hard to get listening as much as I want.
I saw you do that with one of the students in the middle of the class.
Okay, so will you share that?
You're prepping her to participate. It was something she said in a low pressure, right? And kind of elevating that voice. That was awesome.
And then one thing I've used to do, I used to always, someone would speak and then I would speak, and then someone would speak and I would speak. And I often found myself evaluating or that comment's awesome, or did you hear that? And I've actually been trying to shift away from that and just be more like the fly on the wall, letting them talk, letting them come to ideas. I used to also kind of funnel okay, I need you to know what the power of 0 means by the end of the day. And I went to this training this year, and they're just why would you steal their curiosity away? And so I've been more and more just kind of simmer with those ideas, go play with them, and I'm going to try and give you experiences that we can debate enough that we convince each other.
Oh, that was so real. I mean, you really were giving those students, and it helped them feel well, I can comment. I can comment. 3 other people have, instead of evaluating each comment as they give them. That was incredible. And even all of the little structures that you have to encourage them to listen and participate, the tracking, the drum rolls, the clap, the microphone, giving the student the microphone so that they can be heard. I mean, all of that was just encourages them to participate.
Yeah, and I love that. I've been begging that for years for all my previous schools. This is the first one I got it. And I feel those kids that have quiet voices, they can finally be heard with a mic.
Well, and the other equitable piece of that is being able to hear, right? It's one thing just to give the kid the mic where, there's a piece of that where okay, now it's your turn, you get to be heard. But there's a lot of times in a class, especially we've got fans going on, it's a little bit hard to hear. And so that's just going to allow a kid, no matter where they're sitting in the room, to be able to participate. Because I mean, I've been in many discussions where the teacher always has to like, okay, this is what they said because I know you didn't hear it. And that mic just takes that away.
Yeah, I used to do it all the time. And you get way more student to student. I went to someone, they call it volleyball conversations versus ping pong of like teacher to student to teacher to student.
One of the other things that I noticed while we were observing is you had this moment where you said, okay.
We've been doing a lot of sitting. Why don't you guys stand up, take 15 steps, find someone that's not on your table, and then summarize what you're thinking right now.
And so you've incorporated movement in addition to everything else we've talked about. And I just thought that it was just so great to be there and just see how you just have so many structures in place just to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, because it gets old after a while. That's one thing I learned from you, Kate. Like, you get them up
Because I get bored really fast.
Yeah. No, me too, right? If I'm bored, they're bored. But I mean, you go to the training and you sit for like an hour in a hot classroom with no air conditioning, you got to move.
Yes. Well, and I just love, it really is. I'm so glad we got footage because, you're in an older school, this really small classroom, no air conditioning, and it's electric in there, right? It's the buzz of people talking, people wanting to participate, and you've got those really powerful structures in place. So I know a lot of teachers would see this and want to start somewhere. So one, kind of what tips and advice do you have for someone kind of seeing this and being like, I want my classroom to feel like that. Where do I start? And then maybe highlighting the highest impact strategies of the ones that you do.
So I feel like the biggest thing is just start it. Like if you're wanting to do that, do it. I think also you can't talk about things unless you have something interesting to talk about. So in every subject or something like that, it's like, well, what do you think this means? Or I often will do things like, when student A did it this way, student B did it this way. Who do you agree with? Like almost start them off with ways of you have multiple choices. I think one of the biggest things I've noticed this year and the biggest changes is that me not taking over and me not talking, just getting the students to be able to talk to themselves and me not judging and not saying that's right, that's not wrong, like just letting them go with it. That's been a huge mind shift for myself, but I feel like that's been probably the biggest change I've made. I think also just get a vision of what you want to do. I know people come to my room and like, it's too loud. I don't like that. It's bothers me. So I mean, like if you don't want to do something like that, what is your vision of what conversations to look like? And then you think about that. I had that in my head, and then I can't like, okay, I'm going to try this procedure, this procedure, this procedure. And then I would just kind of, does this work? No, let's change it up. Does this work? No, let's change it up. And just steal ideas. Every PD I go to, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to take that. Go watch teachers that you heard do these kind of things. Like I said, I used to teach with Kellen Davis. I used to go observe him all the time, and a lot of these I stole from him. I guess we share often, but
that's it, right? As teachers, we collaborate.
Right. But one special case I got to do is I was like a district math coach specialist last year. So I got to go to like over 200 classrooms last year. And just, I love that. I'm going to start trying to do those kind of things. And I think, I know we don't have time, but if you can just spend some time during lunch, go eat your lunch in someone's class, go grade in someone's class, just kind of soak it in while you're doing other stuff, I think makes a big difference.
One of the things that I want to mention is how powerful it is to go see somebody else teach, because so many times we teach in isolation and we can only be like the judge of what we know by what we're doing. And we might think we're doing great things, and then we go look at some other teachers and see their practices and procedures and realize, oh, I can take that piece and just add it in here. I think another thing that you said that I really liked was you've got to take what works for you. And so somebody might come into your room and say, I want to do everything that Anand does, the way that he does it. But that's not our own style. Like we have to still like modify and make it work for us, or else then it's not authentic.
Exactly. Like my wife's a math teacher. She used to teach, and we do not teach the same. We've tried it before, and like, yeah, she's like, I don't know if I would do what you do. And I'm like, that didn't work for me.
We had such a good time watching Anand's class and hearing from him. And what we wanted to do is do a little wrap-up review of some of the favorite things that we talked about and saw, to kind of consolidate them into some quick, easy tips. And so the first one that I loved, and I think this is so important in anything we do in teaching, is, they say location, location, location. I like to say structure, structure, structure. And I think one of the things I loved is that he was using his students, giving them jobs and helping them learn how to facilitate a conversation. So he had one student walking around with the microphone, giving it to the students that wanted to talk, and then another student giving a ticket for those comments. And that structure was just really cool that he was utilizing students.
Another great piece of that is, let's say that you have a kid that you've got to move around a little bit more, like give them a job like that and just have them run around the room with the microphone. Like, great for that. So one of the things that I really liked was the sentence structures that he had set up.
More structure, Jared.
More structure. And especially, like, a lot of times, like, kids don't know, like, what to say. And so giving them a place to start, like, oh, I think this. Like, it's just an easy spot. Great place to help kids out.
Another tip that I loved was that he talked about how he practiced with his students, practiced these conversations, taught them, and then practiced them just like we would content, like we're going to practice how to do this. And I love that he added he did it with low stress topics because he's fighting math anxiety, which is real for the students that he works with in that specific content. So practicing it in a low stress environment so the students could be successful.
Yeah, and I mean, it's always fun to talk about, like, who's the better superhero out of Batman and Spider-Man, and pretty low floor on that one. And then you can get to 10 to the power of 0.
Absolutely.
I really liked going from the large group to the small group. And one point that I want to make about it is sometimes in the large group setting, you have, maybe you only have like 5 or 6 kids that get to speak up on the topic. Well, you've got a lot of other kids in the class. And so turning it back to, okay, let's go find a partner, or in your group, like, let's continue talking about this topic. I just think it's a great way to keep everybody involved.
And those transitions were really tight. You could tell that was also practiced, which was awesome. The last tip that I wanted to review was how he talked about he didn't comment after every student comment. And he talked about it as a volleyball conversation instead of a ping pong. He let the students talk to each other rather than him inserting himself between every comment, and how that changed the vibe of his room. I loved that.
Yeah, that's actually my final tip as well, was that whole idea that you don't have to be the voice of authority for everything that's said, because when you do, invariably what happens is kids don't want to share at that point. Because they know that they're going to be critiqued on every little thing.
You assign value to every comment, which, might halt the conversation.
Well, those are some great tips on having a discussion and some things that you can do to structure it and be successful in your class. Let's go back to Anand and hear his gift.
Okay, it's a little weird, but a few years ago, I got a Christmas gift that was a garbage disposal genie. And you're like, what is that? But it's this thing you can put in your garbage disposal, and it has little holes so food can go down it, but your silverware doesn't. And it also has a little scraper so you can scrape your sink when you're feeling like it. So it changed my life. I don't have to stick my hand in gross water and pull stuff out. I don't have any more garbage disposal forks. It's amazing. And I hear there's a 2.0 version out. I haven't tried it, but the garbage disposal genie, the brand is Danco. It's the one I'm using.
Oh my goodness, what a gift. I've got to go get one.
Well, this is by far one of my favorite gifts of all time.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like it'll be the gift that gives for a long time. The garbage disposal genie. Well, as always, we'd like to thank our producer Tom for making it sound so good. This season, we're also putting video of the podcast on YouTube, so you will be able to see footage of Anand's class in the YouTube video. So check out the show notes for that link. Thanks for joining us. Please like and subscribe and share the podcast with others. See you at school.